First and foremost, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai Ba'ashem Rakakwadash. Yahweh is through this world ignorantly calls God. Yahweh Shai is through this world ignorantly calls Jesus. Ba'ashem means in the name. Rakah means spirit, and Kodash means holy. And that's on the Paleo Hebrew. I also want to give double honors to the elder bishops and apostles of Great Millstone that taught me this truth. Today's video, I wanted to go into how 4th of July means nothing, right? We're not really independent, okay? We are all dependent on the system, right? There's no freedom, there's no, glorification because we are still enslaved to the system. So I searched up, what is 4th of July, and a lot of people don't even know. But 4th of July is essentially the United States, formed the 13 colonies independent from British rule, and that was the classification of our independence, America starting. And, when you go into the history of this, you'll find that, it was actually biblically prophesied that it was going to happen in this way, that America was going to split from Britain, okay, and maybe before it happened, years before it happened, it was written that it was going to take place this way. So let's get straight to it. When you go into Daniel chapter 7, and you go into what this is talking about, Daniel chapter 7 is talking about the four major empires in the world. So when you go into Daniel chapter 2, the scholars actually have realized what it was talking about. And the first kingdom was the Assyrian Babylonian Empire, second kingdom was the Medo-Persian Empire, third kingdom was the Greek Empire, and the fourth kingdom was the Roman Empire, which right now we are in the Roman Empire, which America is the last end of that. Okay, America is the reborn Roman Empire. And soon we will be in the divine kingdom with the Israelites under the Messiah Yahweh Shai ruling the world, the universes in righteousness. So we're in Rome right now. And you can tell by the architecture, the legal system, and everything. Everything resembles ancient Rome. Now, when you go into the breakdown here, it's talking about the fourth beast, which we just read, was Rome. And it says, after this I saw in the night visions, and behold, the fourth beast, dreadful and terrible and strong exceedingly, and it had great iron teeth. It devoured and brake in pieces and stabbed the residue with the feet of it, and it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. Right? When you go into the breakdown, the reason that it says that the fourth beast was dreadful, terrible, strong exceedingly, iron teeth, was because of the military might that Rome had. Rome was known for a superior, force, where they were just steamrolling everybody. And the reason it says it was diverse from all the other beasts is because through Rome is when you really got, that when you really saw the Senate, the democracy, that type of ruling. Previously, before that, it was called a monarchy, which is the king, and after the king dies, his son rules, and with that system. But with the Greeks and Romans is when you had the, Caesars, and that type of vibe, where everybody elected one person to rule over the masses. And it says it had 10 horns, which that was a future prophecy, which dealt with NATO and EU, because NATO and EU all started with 10 nations. And I have this chart here, which essentially explains, um, the beast made by the prophets of GMS. And here it says the 10 horns represent the common market. You can't really read it. The 10 horns represent the common market, or the European Economic Community (EEC), established in 1953. Today, the EEC is known as the EU, the European Union, and it all started from 10. That's where you get the 10 horns. So it says that I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn, before whom there were three of the first horns plucked up by the roots. And behold, in this horn were eyes like the eyes of man, and a mouth speaking great things. Right, and that little horn that came out of the 10, okay, the extra little horn, is talking about America. And it says, before whom there were three of the first horns plucked up by the roots. Right, so what were those three first horns that were plucked up by the roots? Right, those going into the French, the Spaniards, and the British. Right, America plucked up, all those three kingdoms, essentially. America, is the French-American War, the Spanish-American War, and then the War of Independence, I'm guessing. What was it called? Spanish American War, French American War, and there's one more. What was War of Britain against America called? War of Independence, I believe. War of 1812, the American Revolution. So essentially, it was Britain, right? And that's what it was talking about. So before anything happened, it was prophesied that America, if you can, spiritually, symbolically see it, the little horn, before whom there were three of the first horns plucked up by the roots, right? America conquered the French, Spanish, and the British. And behold, in this horn were eyes like the eyes of man, which that's going into, foresight, wisdom. Okay, America, was built through wisdom, not the righteous wisdom. I take that back, not wisdom, but intelligence, built off the backs of slaves. And this is in the mouth speaking great things, going into the pride. But when we go into Revelation 17, this also talks about it and links everything together. It just makes sense. Revelation 17, right? When you go into what this is talking about, Revelation 17, and I'll start at verse 9. So when it goes into the seven heads and the 10 horns, the seven heads is dealing with the seven major empires of the Edomites. Right, Germania Major, the Romans, the French, the Spanish, the Germania Minor, the British, and the Greeks. Right, so during the time that John was writing this, he was in the Roman Empire. And it says, "And here is the mind which hath wisdom. The seven heads are seven mountains on which the woman sitteth. And there are 7 kings, 5 are fallen, and 1 is, and the other is not yet come. And when he cometh, he must continue a short space." Right, so what is this talking about? 5 are fallen, and 1 is. So, John was in the Roman Empire, so before that, 5 had fallen, right? And 1 is, right? He was in that Roman. And the other one is not yet come, and when he cometh, he must continue a short space, right? So that was dealing with, I believe it was the French, if I remember correctly. I think it was the French, if I remember correctly. 1 is, 5 are fallen, 1 is, and the other is not yet come. And when he cometh, he must continue a short space. Oh, Salakia, that was talking about the seventh, which was dealing with Britain, right? Because Britain only reigned, that reignship of Britain was for a very small time. Let's search that up. How long was Britain, the British, in power? The British rule over America spanned for 167 years, right? So a small portion of time when you go into it. And I've made a more in detail video about this research up on my channel, but I'm just going as I remember. It says, "And the beast that was," this is the point, "and the beast that was and is not, even he is the eighth, and is of the seventh that goeth into perdition." Right. So the beast that was is talking about this beast system, America. It says, "and is not," because it hadn't came yet in that time. It was coming in the future. It says, even he is the eighth, right? Talking about America, the eighth head, and is of the seventh, because it came from Britain, and goeth into perdition. Right? So this place is going to be destroyed. Right? So what does that show you? It shows you this 4th of July, essentially. How that eighth head came from the seventh, declaring the 13 American colonies independent from British rule. Daniel 2, the little horn coming, destroying the thirds. Little horn being plucking up Salakia, I'm just tripping up. Before whom there were 3 of the first horns plucked up by the roots by the little horn. America conquering Spanish, French, British. So hopefully that made sense, and I want to get some scriptures dealing on the fact also that we're not free. Baruch chapter 3 and verse 8, "Behold, we are yet this day in our captivity, where thou hast scattered us for a reproach and a curse, and to be subject to payments, according to all the iniquities of our fathers which departed from the Lord our power." Right, and that's talking about today. The Israelites today are still in captivity. Right, we're going to be in captivity under these other nations till Yahushua comes back. And we're here, scattered for a reproach, a curse, and subject to payments. Right, so if you're paying taxes, You're not free. You're not independent, right? You're under somebody, and under, definition, you're a slave. You're a slave to the system. Try not paying your taxes and see how that ends up for you, right? Thrown behind bars or deported, you know. And it all goes back to this Deuteronomy 28 and verse 64. And Yahweh shall scatter thee among all people from the one end of the earth even unto the other, and there thou shalt serve other gods which neither now thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone. Right? So this is this is where the curse comes from, is Deuteronomy 28. And until Yahweh comes back, we're going to be in this condition, scattered, serving other gods as a collective. The elect are going to wake up out of that slumber and serve Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai. But before that, we were serving other gods that were made up, wood and stone. Islam, fucking walking around the Mecca, the black cube, wood and stone. So, Independence Day, there is no Independence Day. The Independence Day will be when Yahweh Shai comes back. So hopefully this is edifying. With that, to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai Ba'ashem, Rakah Kodash, and double honors to the elder bishops and apostles of Great Millstone that taught me this truth. Shalom to you, like Shalom.